A couple of weeks ago, I published an episode where I answered a viewer's question, is driving a right? And oh boy, did that generate a lot of interesting conversations. We'll go over that and more next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Well, hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study once again, where we read and study the Constitution and teach the rising generation to be free. I am glad you could join me. As always, head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. It's where I keep everything Constitution Study. You can watch the episode I'm referring to from a couple of weeks ago, read the article that it's based on. You can find out where I'm going to be. And most importantly, you can ask questions or you can request that I come and speak at one of your events. All that right over at the website. I encourage you to go do that. I also encourage you to sign up for the mailing list. I'll keep you up to date with what I'm doing with the Constitution Study. I want to set out a couple shout outs. I always like to thank Mark and Carol Murphy and the band Rebel North. They let me use their music. I just love that everyday American motif. That's the idea that we're trying to do here. Also, all the people that help share these videos and the articles I post, share them far and wide because I think this is important information. And if you're watching this, most likely you think it's important information too. Also, if you're in the Atlanta area, I will be at the Southeast Homeschooler Expo. I believe it's July 26th and 27th. If you're there, please stop by, say hello, shake my hand. I'd love to talk to you face to face. I'm still looking for a volunteer to help me take care of the booth on that Friday. So if you'd be willing or interested, please contact me either through Facebook, YouTube, the website. I'll be more than happy to discuss whether or not we can do this. I'll pay for you to get in and I'll buy you lunch. So let's talk about, is driving a right? Now, those of you who follow the Constitution Study know I usually put out the written article before the video comes out. Due to some crazy scheduling, that's not how this came about. But when the video dropped, I got a lot of really interesting discussions, lots of interesting comments. And it was a good discussion. But there's one comment that I really want to bring to your attention, and that's for two reasons. First, like Vivi 45's original comment, it was a fairly well thought out position. And second, during this discussion, both me and the other person realized there were aspects of this discussion that we had not thought about. So I want to thank David Oldham both for his wonderful discussion. We spent a lot of time on the phone, but also for the courtesy with which he brought this situation to my attention. So in this follow-up, I will do my best to represent David's point of view as I understand it from our discussion. Now, if I get something wrong, I hope David will correct me in the comments, but it is important for everyone to understand this is my understanding and it's not necessarily David's point of view. I just want to be fair. So the question at hand has to do with the question of rights and how we know what is and is not a right. I mean, things like freedom of religion, speech, and press, well, they're easy because they're listed in the Constitution. But are only the rights enumerated in the Constitution the ones that get protection? See, if we read the Constitution, the enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's the Ninth Amendment, folks. See, the Ninth Amendment specifies that just because a right isn't specifically listed in the Constitution doesn't mean it's not a right and that it shouldn't be protected. Now, I argued in the original discussion that the right to drive is basically a property rights issue, specifically that of your right to operate something you own as long as you don't use it to infringe on the legitimate rights of others. David, as I understand it, sees this more of a freedom of movement right. Freedom of movement is not enumerated in the Constitution, but we all agree that we have a right to move along public roads without interference, or at least we should. So from this, I have two challenges for my viewers. First, can anyone find a quote from a founding father that can be referenced to the effect that about our right to travel? And I want something referenceable. See, I believe we do, but I've not found a quote that I feel comfortable using as a reference yet. Second, can someone find a reference from the founding era that the mode of transportation is not a factor in the right to travel? Again, I don't think the mode matters, but the only quotes I've found so far are really rather suspect. Now, the point that David brought up during our discussion that I really didn't think much about when I was discussing this with Vivi 45 was a question of licensing. Specifically, is the requiring of a license prior restraint? See, prior restraint is the restraining of your actions before you act. The idea of preventing you from doing something because you may do something wrong. Now, the Fifth Amendment says that you will not be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So if operating a motor vehicle on public roads is a right, then preventing you from doing so before you've done anything wrong is depriving you of your liberty without due process of law. So is requiring a license to operate a motor vehicle on public roads depriving you of a liberty? Well, that really depends on what type of liberty we're talking about. You see, according to the Webster's 1828 dictionary, there are several types, layers of liberty. Liberty, freedom from restraint in a general sense, and applicable to the body or the will or mind. The body is at liberty when not confined. The will or mind is at liberty when not checked or controlled. A man enjoys liberty when no physical force operates to restrain his actions or volitions. Natural liberty consists in the power of acting as one thinks fit without any restraint or control except from the laws of nature. It is a state of exemption from the control of others and from positive laws and the institutions of social life. This liberty is abridged by the establishment of government. Civil liberty is the liberty of men in a state of society or natural liberty so far only abridged and restrained as is necessary and expedient for the safety and interest of the society, state, or nation. A restraint of natural liberty, not necessary or expedient for the public, is tyranny or oppression. Civil liberty is an exemption from the arbitrary will of others, which exemption is secured by establishing laws which restrain every man from injuring or controlling another. Hence, the restraints of law are essential to civil liberty. So, mandatory licensing does deprive someone of their general liberty and their natural liberty, since I know of no natural law that operating a motor vehicle would violate. But does it violate a person's civil liberty? Are mandatory driver's license necessary or expedient for the safety and interest of society? More importantly, is the licensing of drivers a proper function of government, or should it be turned over to another process? Is it the proper role of government to tell its citizens, the citizens who created it, when they are qualified to operate equipment? See, I thought this time I'd open this up to more of a debate. So tell us all what you think in the comments below. Do you understand what I'm talking about with different types of liberties? Is it a question of civil liberty? Is the requirement to have a license to operate a vehicle necessary for the safety of society? We all agree that laws like speed limits and which side of the road to drive on are necessary to the safety of society, but does proving capability, licensing, do so? And then the big question is government the proper mechanism to do that? So that's something we often forget, is that just because society may need something doesn't mean that government is the proper entity to do that. So again, in the comments below, tell me what you think. Is driving a right and licensing is a violation of a liberty because it's not necessary to the safety of society? Or is locomotion a right, and yes, we need licensing, but government is or is not the right entity to do that? I'm looking forward to an interesting debate and an interesting discussion. Again, put your points of view in the comments. I read them all. I try to answer them all. I'm hoping to have another really good debate. Again, I want to thank David for bringing this to my attention, his point of view to my attention, and doing so courteously. This was not an argument. This was truly a discussion where we tried to find the truth from two different points of view. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll participate in the discussion. And as always, I hope I'll see you again the next time on the Constitution Study. Have a good day.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from